Okay, good evening, everyone, and welcome to our live tonight. And continuing on our 30 days, 30 tips. Tonight, we're going to talk about SharePoint and a SharePoint introduction. And we're going to also talk about team sites and communication sites, which are the main items within SharePoint. So I'd like to welcome all of you who are watching live, and I'd also like to welcome all of those who are watching on the recording. So without further ado, let's go into the detail around SharePoint and Teams and communication sites. Okay, so we saw yesterday that SharePoint is a file or is kind of one of the functions of SharePoint is the file storage system within Microsoft 365, and that also sits behind Microsoft Teams. So SharePoint is where the files are stored for Microsoft Teams. So it gives us lots of powerful features in terms of file management. And some of those are items such as metadata, versioning, being able to check in and check out our files from the system. So I'm going to just dive in here and start off with the comparison of a team site versus a communication site, just so that we can see which one we should choose in which instance. So I'm just going to share my screen with you now. So just bear with me 1 second. There we go. So who better to give us this definition than Microsoft themselves? So I've got a comparison here that Microsoft themselves have created, and this URL, we'll post this URL following the live onto the event so that you can get back to this URL as and when you would like. And it's quite a good way of kind of introducing yourself to these differences. So the team site is where we want work to happen, for example. So if we have a group of people or a team of people, so they may be the finance team, they may be a manufacturing team, for example, they will probably have a lot of documents. They might have some news within that team. They might have additional aspects such as lists of things. So kind of assets or whatever. So they may have a list of assets, for example, that team deals with, or they might have another type of list. A list is basically just a kind of fairly simple type of database within SharePoint. So a team can work on all of these things together within a team site. So let's go and have a quick look at a team site. So I'm just going to change my tab here. So how do we get into SharePoint to start with? Well, here is the Office 365 portal. So on the left-hand side here, you'll find that we've got the icon for SharePoint, or we can use the waffle as well, as it's known, up here at the top in the left, and we can find SharePoint in this way. So I'm just going to click on SharePoint here. It will open up for me in a new tab. So here is my SharePoint home site. So you can see now right up at the top here that we are in SharePoint. And we have an option here up at the top left to create a site. So we're not going to go very deep into discussion here today because we don't have time. And I know you're kind of, push for time probably, or want to get back to whatever you were doing beforehand. So so not to take up too much of your time, let's go back to the team site here. So this is the team site. We're going to do a live test. So it will give us also a group email address. So this will be live test at your domain, for example. And it will show you here what the address is for the site also. We can put a description in there. We can have privacy settings. Generally, when you have a team site, you are going to set this to private because there are going to be teams of people working on certain things. I'll just kind of touch upon the fact that you can actually, through the creation of a team within Microsoft Teams, this will also automatically create the SharePoint team site in the background for you. So if we click on next there, so do we have any additional owners? So is anyone else going to help us manage the site? Not at the moment. We can also add our members as we're creating this. So let's finish there. And there we have it straight away. So we have our team site, which is created, and this is a place for now an internal team, for example, to collaborate on different aspects. So we can collaborate on files, on the lists, and so forth, as I mentioned. So we can upload files, invite team members, and also very useful. Microsoft have now given us a number of templates, so we don't have to think about the setup of our site. So we may have a training and development team, for example. So if we choose the training and development team, let's use this template. There we go. So it's applied the training and development template. And now you can see that it's already created a really usable site for us, which we can use internally. It's going to give us some next steps here, which are useful as well. So we can add, for example, Microsoft Teams on top of this site if we wanted to. We can post news, and we can change this to reflect our branding as well. And they've also given us a few folders here within, for example, so we can see here on the left-hand side some of the aspects of this site. So if we go into the documents here, and here we can see the document library that is associated with this template. So they've already created these for us. Okay, so that is a team site. Now let's move on to a communication site. So why would we want to use a communication site? Well, a communication site, as this mentions, is when we want to broadcast something out to a group of people. So this is more kind of related to the fact that you may have one or two or a team of people, for example, authoring content and then sharing it with a much larger group. The real kind of example that I can think of here is an intranet, for example. So a company intranet, you have certain people within certain departments potentially who have the access to manage the content on that intranet. They publish the content when it's ready, and all of the company can consume the data on that communication site. So as it mentions here, the primary purpose of the intranet is to communicate stories such as corporate news, showcase services, for example. So that is really the best example of a communication site that I can think about. So very quickly, we'll just move back into the SharePoint site here, and we can just have a look at the creation of one of those. So let's create our site here. And here's the communication site creation for us. So let's call this one our live intranet. So that's basically all there is to it. We'll create that site. And again, as you can see, it will suggest a template for us, so we can browse those templates, or we can just use the initial setup that Microsoft have given us. So let's browse these templates quickly. And as you can see, there's a number of kind of really good templates in here. So let's go for a departmental intranet. We'll use that template. So it's going to apply that. So SharePoint, as that's applying, two main purposes. So team sites for collaboration together. Everyone pretty much is an author working together on those documents. Communication sites, a small number of people or a lower number of people working on kind of publishing documentation that lots of people generally can consume. So here you can see that this intranet here, the template has been applied here, and we've got a few suggestions of things we can kind of set up within our menus. We can see analytics on who's kind of coming onto our site, and there's kind of information here in a calendar form, and there's information here on a on other files and folders that we can also share. So we can also share files, folders, documents. So if we have kind of templates, for example, that people need to use, we can set them up within this kind of context. Okay, So a very quick look there at kind of an initial look at SharePoint, team sites and communication sites. So we'll hope to see you again tomorrow, where we'll go into a bit more detail on certain aspects of team sites within SharePoint. All right, we'll see you tomorrow. Thanks very much. Bye.